Good evening. It's wonderful to see so many of you here. It's delightful that few of you were frightened away by the pass-by squall of snow. Welcome. My name is Artemis Kirk. I'm University Librarian at Georgetown, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome all of you to the annual Tanous Family Endowed Lecture. Peter J. Tanous, college class of 1999, and a member of our library board, established the Tanous Family Endowed Lecture Fund in 2010 in honor of Lowinger Library's 40th anniversary and as part of the university's campaign for generations to come, which we're very proud to be a part of. We're extremely grateful to Peter and Ann Tanous for that gift, and we're excited to host the 3rd annual lecture under this program. I also want to thank the many members of the library staff who have organized the event and are here with us this evening also taping the program. I have the distinct privilege to introduce you all to Secretary Ray LaHood. Secretary LaHood gained extensive experience with major national policy issues, including transportation and infrastructure, during his 36-year career in public service. He served as the 16th Department of Transportation Secretary from 2009 to 2013 and became known as a bipartisan leader and skilled conciliator. Please come back. Secretary LaHood's tenure was marked by landmark efforts to improve safety in every mode of transportation, from aviation and rail to pipelines and automobiles. Before heading the U.S. Department of Transportation, Secretary LaHood served from 1995 to 2009 in the U.S. House of Representatives on behalf of the 18th District of Illinois, and also served on various House committees, including the House Appropriations Committee and the House Intelligence Committee. He served as Chief of Staff to U.S. House Minority Leader Robert Michel from 1982 to 1994. He was director of the Rock Island County Youth Services Bureau from 1972 to 74, chief planner of the Bi-States Metropolitan Planning Commission from 1974 to 1977, and district administrative assistant for U.S. Congressman Tom Railsback from 1977 to 1982. Before I introduce you to Secretary LaHood, I'd like again to thank the McCourt School of Public Policy and Dean Ed Montgomery, who is here this evening, for co-sponsoring the program with us tonight. It's a privilege to introduce you to Secretary Ray LaHood. Thank you. These are falling down. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And to Peter and Ann, thank you for inviting me to participate in this wonderful lecture program, and thank you for all that both of you have done for Georgetown. And I know you have very fond memories of stirring around here, and now you've really contributed so much to the university. So we're grateful to you for inviting us to participate. I want to also introduce the ambassador from Lebanon to the United States and his lovely wife, Nicole. Ambassador Shadid and Nicole, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And I want to introduce someone who I served in Congress with, Nick Rahal. Nick, thank you, and to his lovely wife for both of you being here and joining us. Nick has now joined the retired group of us and on to bigger and better things. I thought what I'd do is talk for a few minutes about infrastructure, maybe a little bit about bipartisanship, for the benefit of the students and maybe some of the others gathered here. I thought it might be interesting for you to realize and understand how I made it to becoming Secretary of Transportation. When I was serving in Congress from Central Illinois, I represented 20 counties in Central Illinois. My home is Peoria. Our claim to fame in Peoria is that Caterpillar's corporate headquarters is there. But we also have, my district was a huge agricultural district. The farmers in our district grew a lot of corn and beans and still do. But Central Illinois is a place that I think has been known for bipartisanship and electing people to come to Washington or to Springfield, Illinois, which is the state capital of Illinois, and to work in a bipartisan way. Our heritage and our lineage of bipartisan leaders goes back to Abraham Lincoln, who represented 9 counties in central Illinois in the U.S. House of Representatives for 1 term. And I think most of you that have studied Lincoln know that he truly was a bipartisan leader, not only obviously for his time. He served in the Illinois legislature, but also served 1 term in Congress, and then served our country as the 16th President of the United States in one of the most turbulent, controversial times in the history of our country, but worked in a very bipartisan way when he came to Washington, appointing to his cabinet people who actually ran against him when he was running for president. And also coming from our area was a gentleman named Everett Dirksen, who served in Congress, developed an eye disease, left Congress, and went back after his eye disease was cured and ran for the U.S. Senate and won the U.S. Senate and represented our state in the U.S. Senate, became minority leader. Last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary in our country of the Civil Rights Bill, which could not have been passed without the extraordinary efforts of a very conservative senator from central Illinois who represented Illinois, who worked with Lyndon Johnson to pass that bill. And Everett Dirksen came from an all-white community. He came from Pekin, Illinois, grew up in Pekin, Illinois. And Pekin, Illinois today is still an all-white community, but he really showed the leadership to being willing to work with President Johnson back in the day. And if you read Todd Purnham's book about the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Bill, you will see that Everett Dirksen really worked very hard to help President Johnson in many ways, but also to pass the Civil Rights Bill. And then succeeding Everett Dirksen in the U.S. House was Bob Michel, who served for 38 years, the longest-serving Republican leader, 14 years, and throughout his time as leader, worked with President Reagan for 8 years, helped President Reagan pass some major legislation with a Democratic Congress because, again, Mr. Michel was a very bipartisan person. And so when I was elected to Congress in 1994, it was in a time when Republicans had been in the minority for 40 years. Newt Gingrich was elected Speaker, and Republicans took control of the House after being in the minority for 40 years. And President Clinton was president. And during the time that we were in our seat representing Central Illinois and Speaker Gingrich was Speaker, it was obviously a turbulent time, a difficult time for Democrats because they were put in the minority and they lost all of their chairmanships. But I'm proud to say during that period, we did work with President Clinton. We passed 3 balanced budgets. We passed welfare reform. We passed welfare reform 3 times before President Clinton signed it. And I tell you this because those were times during the history of our country when people came to Washington to get things done, to work together, to compromise, to solve big problems. During the time that Speaker Gingrich was Speaker and President Clinton was President, we passed 2 major transportation bills, 2 big bills, 2 6-year bills to continue to move the country forward. During President Clinton's first term, when he did have Democratic control in the Congress, they passed a bill called NAFTA, a very important piece of trade legislation that opened up markets all over the world for companies in our own country. And President Clinton took a lot of grief for that from people in his own party who didn't really like trade legislation. But again, it was done in a bipartisan way with Republican help and Republican votes. And unfortunately, what's happened today is, and after President Obama got elected, he and I became friends while he was a U.S. Senator for 2 years from Illinois, and I was a congressman, and we worked together on issues for Illinois. And after he was elected, I had announced that I was retiring from Congress after 14 years. He called me, and on a very cold day in December, after he'd been elected president, I went to Chicago and interviewed with him, and he offered me the job as Secretary of Transportation as a Republican, to show that this idea of bipartisanship was not just a political slogan, to show that in order to continue to move the country along, his administration was willing to reach across the aisle and include a Republican, and he offered the position of Secretary of Defense to Bob Gates, who had served as Secretary of Defense with President Bush, George W. Bush. And I think it was an indication early in his administration that he did want to work in a bipartisan way. Unfortunately, the 2010 election, after 2 years of President Obama having a Democratic-controlled Congress, 2010, the Republicans took over the House, and we haven't seen much bipartisanship since that time, unfortunately. So let me apply that to what's happening in the field of transportation. We haven't raised the big pot of money that we call the gas tax in 20 years. It was raised in 1993. This is a country that we live in that built the Golden Gate Bridge, the Erie Canal, the Hoover Dam, the interstate system. We have the best interstate system, maybe more than anybody else, any other country in the world. Our country is connected by the interstate. That was thanks in part to the vision of President Eisenhower, a Republican, who signed the Interstate Bill in 1958. And over a period of 5 decades, our country built the interstate system and connected America. And think of the jobs that were created for the people who built the interstate system and all of the small businesses now that are located along those corridors. And it was done using the Highway Trust Fund. For every gallon of gasoline that we buy, we pay a tax. That tax goes into a pot of money, and it's used to build infrastructure. And again, that pot of money has not been raised since 1993. And the Highway Trust Fund is broke. America is one big pothole. Now, you all come from communities. Some of you live here, but some of you live in the country. And you know, if you live in a place like Illinois or Minnesota or Iowa or places that have had these brutal winters for the last 2 or 3 years, the roads are falling apart. Bridges are falling down. And we're not doing anything about it. The Congress a few years ago passed a 2-year bill. And the reason it was only 2 years rather than 6 years is because that's all the money that they could come up with for that period of time. That bill has expired, and now Congress has kind of kicked the ball down the road, kicked the bill down the road and extended the bill. And there's no vision, no leadership, no long-range planning. So people that are engineers are out of work. People that build roads are out of work. And the country is really out of the infrastructure business because we can't get people here in Washington to come together and work together and pass a big bill and increase the gas tax to pay for it. You know, people are talking about using vehicle miles traveled as a way to do it, or tolling, or public-private partnerships, all good things, all things that we used while we were at DOT. But if you really want to rebuild America, get America back to being #1 in infrastructure, you have to have a bipartisan bill, a 6-year bill that is funded in a way that reflects the idea that we're really going to rebuild America. And we're going to rebuild our interstates, and we're going to rebuild all of these bridges that are falling down. And we're going to put people back to work. When we invest in infrastructure, we invest in Americans. The largest segment of unemployment in America today is the building trades, people who build roads and bridges. They're out of work. There is no work. The states don't have the money. And the best example I can use, other than the ones I've already used, is when we came into office in 2009, the Congress passed what was known as the Economic Stimulus Bill, $880 billion. Much decried, much criticized. In that bill was $48 billion for the Department of Transportation to be spent in 2 years. And I'm very proud, under President Obama's leadership, under the work that we did for 2 years, we spent $28 billion on roads and bridges. We spent $8 billion starting a high-speed rail program. We spent $8 billion on transit. We spent $1 billion on airports. And in 2 years, we spent $48 billion, put Americans to work, and began to really rebuild America. And it was a good time. And there were no boondoggles, no earmarks, no sweetheart deals, all done the way that Congress had asked us to do it. And I tell you that because when you invest that kind of money, when you have a big pot of money, you can make a difference. And we don't have that today. The Highway Trust Fund is broke because not enough money is going into it. And the truth is, people are driving less and driving more fuel-efficient cars, but the truth also is that we need to raise the gas tax. I say let's raise it 10 cents a gallon. That gets a lot of money. Not enough to do everything we need to do, but it's a good start. And the other part of that is index it. If the Highway Trust Fund, the gas tax would have been indexed in '93, we wouldn't be having this debate today. And index it to the cost of living. And so Congress needs to work together the way other Congresses have. When people like Nick Rahal were there, when I was there, as I said, we had leadership. We had 75 members on the Transportation Committee. And everybody voted for the bill. Everybody worked on the bill. Everybody had a chance to have their say. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist today. And the reason it doesn't exist is in 2010, people started getting elected to the House of Representatives, not with the idea of coming to Washington and working together, not with the idea of believing that government has a role to play in infrastructure and in many other things, but many of these people don't believe in government. And so what they've done, they've increased their numbers in subsequent elections, and they come here and vote no on everything. If it's Obama's idea, it's a bad idea. And they don't believe in government. They don't think there's a role for government. And I'm sad to say most of them are Republicans. And so we have a real problem on our hands in this country in terms of dealing with infrastructure, but dealing with a lot of issues. The Congress should pass an immigration bill. We have so many millions of people living in the shadows that are doing work in America, not paying taxes. They're doing the work that Americans don't want to do, like picking fruits and vegetables, doing landscaping work, in the service industries. And we should give those people a path to citizenship. We owe it to them to do that. But the Congress is stalled out. We should pass tax reform. The tax code hasn't been reformed for 2 or 3 decades. It's a mess. Can anybody in this room do their own taxes? Probably not. Too complicated. We need tax reform. Look at, look at this idea that, we're not dealing with infrastructure, which I've just spent a lot of time talking about. Congress should pass a 6-year bill, raise the gas tax, and fund it. Americans deserve better. The American people deserve better. And we know these kind of investments will work. And, I look at the current Congress, and now it's under the control of Republicans, both the House and Senate. And everybody started off on the first day talking about cooperation and working together. And now, within 7 days, the Department of Homeland Security will go out of business because Congress has not been able to fund that agency. This is the agency that has kept America safe since 9/11. This is the agency that has tracked down people in this country that want to hurt Americans. This is the agency that does all of the screening for all of the airports in the country and many other things. And in 8 days, their budget runs out because Congress can't agree, because they don't think the president should have implemented by executive order an opportunity for citizens that are here to have a path forward for citizenship. So much for bipartisanship. I mean, the other example that I could use is this idea that, the Speaker of the House invites the Prime Minister of Israel to speak to a joint session of Congress without consulting the President of the United States, who has the responsibility for foreign policy. So our government's at a standstill. We deserve better. And we need people in Washington that want to work together, that want to come together, that want to take a page out of the history books of other Congresses. And what is the solution? The solution really is electing people who believe in government, and when they get elected to a job, like being a congressman or a senator, come to Washington and aren't afraid of the word compromise. When you look at the big things that our country has done over a 236-year history, all of them have been done by compromise, by members of Congress working together. No one of the 435 in the House gets their own way. No one of the 100 senators gets their own way. Things get done when people work together, sit down together, talk together, compromise, and pass legislation that helps the American people. And that's what we need to get back to in infrastructure, in immigration reform, in tax reform, in foreign policy. The Congress is going to be debating whether we should be sending ground troops to deal with the ISIL and some of these other terrorist groups that are wreaking havoc all over the Middle East and all over the world. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, whether there will be bipartisanship or whether it would just be, if it's Obama's idea, we don't think it's a good idea. And that's really not what has made America great. And that's what we need to get back to in terms of the kind of issues that our country faces today. I wish really I could be more optimistic. I wish that we could stand here and tell you that the new Congress that was just sworn in 2 months ago is a Congress that's going to solve our problems. It doesn't look that way. And you know, a lot of the focus here after we get into the end of the year and into next year will be on the presidential campaign. And then everybody will be up for re-election in the House and 1/3 of the Senate. This is the right opportunity. There is a little window of opportunity here. It's going to take the American people to tell their representatives, solve our problems, fix our infrastructure, fix our immigration problems, fix a very complicated tax code. And look, there are many other issues that are out there too, not the least of which are these terrorist groups. So the American people need to get fired up. They need to get concerned. They need to get the people that say they send to Washington, D.C. To move the country forward. That's the kind of leadership we need now. I think the president's ready to do it. I think we need a Congress that's ready to do it. Wish I could be more positive, but that's the way I see things. And so I'm happy to answer your questions, and thank you all for being here.